Hello, welcome to the Tampa Bay IIBA chapter. Today is April 24th, 2024. This is our 161st class. Tonight we have the pleasure of having Silas Dulan join us. Tonight he's going to be talking about measuring the intangible, the enduring value of business analysis in the age of AI. My name is Thea Soren. I'm the president of this chapter. I'm also one of the authors of the Business Analysis Body of Knowledge, as well as a few other things. I've been doing business analysis for about 30 years, and along the way, I've led IIBA chapters for almost half of that time. I had the pleasure of authoring the BABOK, among others, founded a few organizations, including the BA Force Multiplier Movement. I'm also a business consultant, trainer, mentor, and working worldwide. For those of you who are new to the IIBA, the International Institute of Business Analysis, it is the governing body for business analysts. With about 30,000 members, 120 chapters worldwide, and 7 certifications, we are excited about making the world better, one business, one project, and one life after another. I told you that what are the benefits of joining the IIBA? You receive training from chapters around the world. Free access to 11,000 excellent books, including the BABOK and webinars and more. Networking opportunities in a wide variety of formats and discounts on certification exams. I told you that there were 120 IIBA chapters. This is one of them. This is the Tampa Bay, Florida chapter. This is our board. These are the folks who work behind the scenes for your benefit. We appreciate them working so diligently to keep us going. Our chapter strives to build a thriving community of empowered business analysts. The members of the Tampa Bay, Florida chapter are not limited to those who live in the state of Florida. In fact, our members live all over the world. If you do not have an IIBA chapter, Tampa Bay can be your chapter. If you want to join us, reach out to me on LinkedIn and I'll be glad to walk you through it. Why would you join our chapter? We offer multiple training sessions each week, including CBAP prep, all to benefit our participants becoming better and more impactful business analysts. You can see our upcoming events on our website, and those are kept updated by Esther, Alicia, and Amarachi. Thank you, ladies. And the updated posts are put across LinkedIn and Facebook by Cliff, our Vice President of Marketing. You can access over 140 hours of our events on YouTube, again, thanks to Cliff, and you can get an index to all of those at Bob's Amazing Index at rpchurchill.com. While you're there, check out what he has, because he's put in hundreds, if not more, hours to keep all this updated for you. The results of all of these trainings have resulted in these wonderful folks, students in those classes, reaching out to tell us that our training was a big part of their success in achieving this very difficult certification. Many of them further demonstrated how much they value our training as they've gone on to lead IIBA chapters here and around the world. I look forward to figuring out how we can add the current class of people to this certification wall. As we continue to work for our community, we've created support for our college students, our emerging professionals. We want them to help them graduate college with not only a college degree, but also a membership of a professional organization, a professional certification, and maybe more. Reach out to Kennedy Davis, our Director of Emerging Professionals, for more information. Those of you who live in Florida, if you wish to meet other business analysts in real life, reach out to me so that we can begin a chapter branch near you. In working to enlarge the education of our community, we've partnered with several organizations to get the bleeding edge information to you. Our number one partner group is you, the IIBA member, and those who participate with this chapter. We post all of our partner association links on our Tampa Bay website so you can easily see their events. Check it out. Benefits of our association include discounts to our participants. Watermark Learning, as an example. I'm sorry, sir, I'm reading the wrong one. This is from the Bluegrass chapter. On May 1st and May 2nd, they are having their BBAC, which is their Bluegrass Business Analysis Conference. They've given us a 50% discount on this event. Their theme is going to be the Kentucky Derby, and they are going to be predicting who's going to win the Kentucky Derby based upon data that they've been able to get. They're going to teach us how to do that. Back to Watermark Learning. Watermark Learning has given us this discount code for 40% off their products. We use their products, their test bank for our classes, and we also use their CBAP book for our classes. We think that they're the best we can find. They have good impacts. Adaptive US offers us a 20% discount on all live classes and on-demand courses, excluding the IIBA exam vouchers. If you plan to attend the Project Summit Business Analysis World in Orlando, May 5th through 7th, we've got a 10% discount for our participants. While you're there, stop by and give Bob and Silas a shout out. They'll be manning the booth for us. And because of our association with the BA Force Multiplier Movement, you also have a 10% discount on the European Business Analysis Conference, which is going to be May 14th, 15th, and 16th. People from all over the world will be speaking and presenting on that. If you're interested in getting free tickets, I've got a way to do that. Reach out to me. To do something tangible to help our community find the jobs, I created an open group on LinkedIn. I post here daily. From my network of 15,000 connections as well as emails, you're invited to add your jobs as well. So we know that there are jobs out there. We know where the talent is. If you want to reach out to me, I'll be a matchmaker and get qualified individuals to your desk. Tonight, we have SilasDulan talking about measuring the intangibles. We're going to come back to him in just a second. Next week, we have Alicia Funderburk talking about building synergy with global teams and working with stakeholders. She's going to have a fireside chat with several experienced people that work with stakeholders and teams worldwide. The week after, Stephanie Harvell is going to talk about the DISC personality test, enhancing your workplace communication with emotional intelligence, and the DISC. The week after that, David is coming to talk about 4 practices for effective business analysis from his 20-year experience in business analysis. Looking forward a bit, we have an 8-week series we're going to do. We have so many people that say, I want software development experience, but I can't get a job in it because I don't have any experience. I don't really understand what SDLC means. We're going to walk through it for 8 weeks at a high level with a real project. So join us for that. And now for our presentation, I turn it over to Silas.
Wow, so you guys have a lot going on there. That's incredible.
You
got to get me signed up for some of those events. I didn't realize how pronounced you all were. So this is awesome. It's incredible. I'm just really excited to be in this conversation with you all tonight. I'm going to attempt to share my screen here. Technology can be our best friend or our worst enemy. So I'm going to take us to a lot of different places when it comes to this technological age that we're in. So sharing my screen now.
We can see it.
All right, good deal. So from the top, again, I'm really excited to have this conversation with you all. I believe we have folks literally from all over the world in this conversation we're having here tonight. And one of the cool things about artificial intelligence, blockchain, machine learning, it's going to affect all of us, right? In a lot of ways, it's going to bring a lot of us together. There's a lot for us to be excited about. There's also some things for us to be concerned about as well, too. So I'm here to really hopefully give you all some inspiration, some thoughts on how we think about measuring the intangible, right? In a lot of ways, these computer programs, these systems, artificial intelligence isn't designed to do what humans can do. And really want to talk about how we leverage these opportunities essentially as tools to really advance the work that we do. So as Tia said before, I'm Silas Dulan. I'm the founder and CEO of the Dulan Business Group. I'm based here in Kansas City. And what we're going to learn at a high level is I'll give you guys a little bit of my background. Not sure if you had a chance to read any of my bio, but I'll bring some of that in. I'm not going to pretend as though to be a subject matter expert or a business analyst like you all, but I have spent a little bit of time doing some analytical work under the umbrella of business. I want to talk to you guys about the robots that are coming, right? So it's not going to be a doomsday situation. I'm going to scare you a little bit and bring you back to reality and let us know we're all going to be okay at the end of the day. I really feel in a lot of ways that you all as BAs, as business analysts, are here to really help us save the world. And I'm going to provide us some BAs analysis in action So looking at some case studies, providing some real world tools, and also help you all develop essentially an intangible value proposition, right? In a lot of spaces I've been able to play in, we call them EVPs, so employee value propositions. So I really want to present to you all essentially intangible value propositions. So we thinking about what you're doing in your space from a BA perspective. How do you make a business case for the value that you all bring? There's always going to be a need for our BAs across sectors, across industry, and across the globe. And then also want to engage you all in a Q&A session at the end as well. I don't just want to be a talking head. So I really want to hear what you all want to hear about and what you want for me to talk about. And if there's a slide that I bring up, obviously note it down, come back to it. We'd love to engage you all in these conversations as well too. So I've already said a little bit. So my background, I live in Kansas City. I'm on the Kansas side. For those of you all that may not be familiar with Kansas City, Kansas City is divided by the Missouri River. Anything east of the river is the Missouri side. Anything on the west side is the state of Kansas. I happen to live on the west side, the Kansas side. I'm from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. So if you hear any y'alls or draws, that's what's coming out of my voice every once in a while. I've spent a lot of years trying to suppress that, but it does flare up every once in a while. And it's always country with a K, not a C, right? So it does flare up. I'm educated from Baker University. Baker University is a small liberal arts college, kind of middle of nowhere, Kansas. Our claim to fame is being the first college in the state of Kansas. Since 1858, that's kind of our shtick there. Studied business management with a minor in psychology. I went back to my alma mater and earned a master's in management. That's what the MSM stands for. Professionally speaking, the Sprint headquarters, now T-Mobile, used to be in Kansas City. As you know, T-Mobile has bought them out a handful of years ago. So now the headquarters is in Seattle, but there still is a relatively strong presence for Sprint or T-Mobile here in Kansas City. So first big boy job out of college, I worked in supply chain. Was there during the Sprint Nextel merger all the way back in 2005. Left Sprint, actually got let go. So a couple of things happened, right? The merger happened in 2005 with Sprint and Nextel, and then the Great Recession of 2008 hit. So I got let go in 2009. They always say, three times is the charm. That's a lie, because the fourth wave of layoffs is what actually got me. But was at Sprint for about 4 years, left Sprint, went back to my alma mater at Baker University, served as their director of multicultural affairs at the main campus in Baldwin City. Also served then concurrently as the director of retention at the graduate school, SPGS, in Kansas City. I was there for about 4 years, working with non-traditional students, working with international students of color, and so on and so forth. So did that for about 4 years. Left Baker, then went to a large construction company called Kiewit. Kiewit is based in Omaha, Nebraska. They build power plants. They do heavy civil work. They build roads, bridges, wastewater treatment plants, highways, renewable plants, the whole nine. So I worked for them essentially as an on-site financial business manager. I had the opportunity to work at 2 nuclear facilities, one in Omaha, one in Indiana, and also I worked at an air quality control plant in Indiana, and I worked at a nuclear facility in Omaha, Nebraska, and also in Spring City, Tennessee. I was there probably about 3 years. While in that space at Kiewit, I was tapped by the vice president of HR. So I had a chance to work in university recruiting. So I was a university recruiting manager for about 2 years. So I had the chance of recruiting all across the United States. I had the engineers. I had a team of 5. I also recruited business types. I ran the MBA program. So really rich experience from a TA perspective. Left Kiewit and then went to Evergy. At Evergy, I served as a handful of hats. Was there for 7 years. Was a senior HR partner. Worked at the power plants and service centers for Evergy. They're the local utility here in Greater Kansas City. So served at the nuclear facilities, air quality control plants, T&D sites, that's transmission and delivery, acronym city. Did that for about 2 years. Was tapped by the vice president of generation to work in power marketing. So I had a chance to buy and sell and trade power for about 1.5 years. So that was my small stint at analytics. So I had a chance of buying and selling and trading power, doing some origination work, making sense of it, telling stories around how we should be brokering power and how we should go after new business opportunities to make money for the organization. Was tapped out of the power marketing role by the former now retired president of Evergy, I'm Terry Bassam, a good friend of mine. So really, I kind of got balled and told to do that role. So the president tells you to do something, you pretty much better well do it. So stood up diversity, equity, and inclusion at Evergy. Did that for about 4 years. Was recruited out of Black and Beach. Sorry, was recruited out of Evergy to work at Black and Beach. Black and Beach is a global engineering firm, also based here in Kansas City. Had the chance to be an associate vice president of global diversity, equity, and inclusion. So now we're looking at diversity, equity, and inclusion as to how do the historic relics of the caste system in Mumbai and Pune show up in the workforce? Are there any relics of the apartheid South Africa showing up in the workspaces in South Africa, and ensuring that all of the our online presence is also in Spanish for our professionals in Santiago, Chile. So that's kind of my background in a nutshell, at a very, very high level. As of late last year, I ventured out on my own and started my own LLC. So my LLC is as my name, so it's the Dulan Business Group. I've been in energy. I have been in industry for almost 20 years. The space that I've really been able to carve out a niche in essentially is AEC companies. So that's architecture, engineering, and construction. I am a former college athlete, so I do have part of my LLC's vertical is around athletics. And also, I'm really focused on essentially tackling some of the most complex and challenging people challenges across sectors. The services I provide, a level iteration, so it's consulting, connections, and conversations. I'll start bottom up. If you can't tell by now, I do like to talk, so I do keynote speaking. From a connections perspective, it's a lot of things around business enablement. So being in construction, working in utility, working in engineering, being able to connect businesses to businesses, connecting business to philanthropic opportunities and the like. And then from a consulting perspective, there's a lot of conversation around workplace, workforce. The interesting thing that we're facing, I'm sure you all can appreciate this, is we're facing an 85 million shortfall on talent globally across the board. I'll get into what's driving that here in a little bit later on. But the fact of the matter is there's all the conversation about workforce strategies, workforce planning, but I don't hear enough about workplace readiness. And so there's a difference between workplace and workforce. So when we think about the workplace, the conversation I like to provide is the workplace ready for the workforce of the future, which we'll get into a little bit later on in our conversations, where business analysts can help us bridge the gap and tell bigger and broader stories about attracting talent regardless of sector or demographic. So a little bit about my background. Hopefully that gives me a little bit of credibility, and I'm ready to hop right in, scare you for a little bit about the robots that are coming, engage in conversation, and walk us through some case studies, give you all some helpful tools to make the business case for yourselves as business analysts. So let's just hop right in.
When the war started, they protected me. Took better care of me than humans would have.
They're not people, Maya. It's just programming.
10 years ago today, the artificial intelligence created to protect us detonated a nuclear warhead in Los Angeles. This is a fight for our very existence.
Sergeant Taylor, we are this close to winning the war. But the AI are developing a super weapon. Retrieve it. Or they win.
Did you locate the weapon? Yeah, it's just a kid.
Are you going to heaven?
No. You gotta be a good person to go to heaven.
So, we're the same. We can't go to heaven because you're not good. And I'm not a person.
Do you have any idea what the thing is?
She looks like a little girl now, but she's growing. Whoever has that kid wins the war.
Who said you want, huh?
What do you want, sweetie?
For robots to be free.
Oh, we don't have that in the fridge. How about ice cream?
All righty. Who's excited about robots? So one of the most pivotal things in that trailer, obviously, that was an extreme situation of AI essentially taking over. But one of the most key things in that video, that trailer, I'm not sure if you all caught that, when the baby or child robot was asked the question of, "What do you want?" And the younger person said, "I want robots to be free." And you saw the other robot respond back, "Well, we don't have that in the refrigerator. How about some ice cream instead?" So that's so pivotal. And the reason why that's so pivotal, folks, essentially is that robots or AI, blockchain, machine learning, essentially is only designed to do what it's programmed to do. So from a human perspective, we are understanding what the individual is asking for, whereas the robot is only programmed to provide a certain service at that particular time. So I built all that up to say is I want to show you all a very, very extreme situation. And at the end of the day, we're going to be fine, right? So I want to kind of do a shocker at the beginning, but bring things kind of full circle back to you guys as well too. So in the future, actually, as the title says at the top of the screen, it says the robots are coming. Well, guess what? The robots are here. So as you see on the screen right there, there are a handful of artificial intelligence chat bots that exist essentially on our phones today, on our computers and our devices, that are essentially changing the way that business analysis or business analysts think about business. And actually, it's shaping the entire generation of work as we know it. Some things that I know that we're afraid of right now is looking at the future, looking at our crystal ball, and we're seeing us having to compete with robots, right? Obviously, there's a picture there of two individuals that are waiting on essentially like for a job interview. And right next to them are two other robots that are also waiting probably for the same job interview as well too. And then also too, as we think about the landscape of where uh, all industries are going, we're fearful of that, right? We're fearful of showing up into a business or an office, and you look around and the organization looks essentially like these smart machines, right? So I'm here to talk again about, at a high level, how do we interact and how do we engage with this new speed of pace when it comes to automation. So I'm a part-time historian, not really, but kind of. So let's, for 2 seconds, hop with me into your DeLorean. We're going to go back in time real quick and look at the advances of technology and the advancements of scary technologies that essentially threatened life as we knew it globally. So it's kind of starting way back to the 19th century. We had a little thing that was created that was called electricity. So from an electricity perspective, the early people were afraid of a handful of things. So the initial reaction when we think about electricity, people were afraid of being electrocuted. We were afraid of fires. Essentially, it was considered as unnatural and to be deemed to be really, really dangerous. But as time would show, we eventually came around to it, right? So people began to adopt it. It proven to be more safe than gas lights. It really helped enable any industry, fantastically, from healthcare to home life. And today, as we know, electricity is considered a cornerstone of everything that's essential when it comes to powering everything across the world. A second invention that was created not too long after electricity, so kind of later 19th century, early 20th century, were automobiles, right? So the initial reaction to automobiles, essentially, they were known as devil wagons, right? You think about the horse and carriages from back in the day; they were carried by horses and buggies. Farmers were really fearful of them creating noise and pollution and safety. Farmers were afraid that they were going to scare their horses and disrupt their livestock. But as we all know, we eventually came around to automobiles as well too. They were mass produced, thanks to Henry Ford with the assembly line, and obviously today, billions upon billions of vehicles flood our streets and our roads and our highways across the board, all throughout the world. early 20th century, give or take, we had an invention called the airplane. The Wright brothers are to thank us for that. We were to thank the Wright brothers for that invention. They were also considered to be unnatural. They believed only be for daredevils and for military personnel. But we came around to it, like we always do. We always evolve, right? So thanks to World War II, helped accelerate innovation and technology. Then also too, commercial airlines were birthed out of that. So we have a brand new industry that was birthed out of airplanes being created. Another technology, kind of more around the 70s and 80s, the 90s, essentially was personal computers and also the internet. So obviously, initial reaction to that too was fear. People were fear of invasion of their privacy. They're also afraid of machines replacing humans. Kind of we're in that space right now as well too. Then also too, the internet was seen as being very risky, and also how do we transact financially online? And also too, we eventually came around. We're talking on a computer right now. We all have our smartphones. We all have our tablets. PCs became to make life a lot more easier for every single sector. And today, digital devices keep us connected across the board. The fifth one I want to bring to our attention, essentially, are smartphones. Everyone has a smartphone. Some of you all may be calling in on a smartphone. I know I've got mine right here next to me. In this case, the phone rings. I also have a tablet, and I'm also talking on multiple monitors as well too. But our smartphones, essentially, I will say it's still relevant as far as the concerns around it being addictive. Where it's concerned about radiation, social isolation, also privacy. But obviously, we all eventually have come around to it. They offered unparalleled convenience, internet, camera, communications, apps, all on one device. It's a one-stop shop. So I bring all those things in to say is, as we've cycled through time, there's always these technologies. There's always this advancement that's happened that has scared the general population, but we've always adapted. I like to think of artificial intelligence in a similar fashion of doing just that for our businesses and the way we go about doing work as well too. So there are just a few, there's a lot, but I'm only going to bring up a few shortcomings essentially of artificial intelligence across the board. I would like to think essentially that artificial intelligence is not a means to an end. It's just a tool. And what I mean by that is it's not a hammer. It can't fix everything. So what I have displayed here essentially is a hammer nailing down a screw, right? There's an appropriate tool that are used for screwing in screws, right? Or doing any type of masonry type of work. The hammer can work in every place, but what ends up happening is you end up bending your screws, right? So the hammer can't be used for every single thing that we're doing, regardless of the type of line of work that we're doing. So I bring all that to say is, think of artificial intelligence as AI, again, blockchain, machine learning, chatbots, essentially as just tools and not a means to an end. You can't use it for everything. Another shortcoming, essentially, this is a debatable topic, right? What's not debatable essentially is data bias. That's a real thing. But the side of it is, from a statistical perspective, there is some studies out there that are saying only 5 to 8% of real world data actually is all online and is captured in some type of systematic form of Internet of Things. But when we think about when we think about data bias, essentially data collection is really important. So again, referencing my historical brain, a lot of the historical documents that we all know that history has shown us that history is told from the perspective of the victor. What I mean by that is, you think about world powers, you think about opportunities that have changed the scope of time, wars have happened. So whoever has been the dominant, whoever has been the victor, that essentially is who's able to write history and tell the story. So a lot of the information that is put into our data is told from a biased perspective, because it's told again from the perspective of the victor. So we think about any world war, any conflict, if you have a nation or a culture that was not victorious, their voices aren't heard, their data is not put into a system. So everything that we are essentially learning from essentially can have a form of bias that's within it. And then also too, that brings us to the point of, there is a sample of the population that is not represented as we think about history or data being told from a perspective. So all that to be said is, the actual population is really much larger than what's actually being put into systems, right? And then with that necessitates essentially is inaccuracies, inequities, or inequalities, also incomplete information, incompatible information. But guess who essentially does that? Essentially, that's where business analysts come in. That's where a human interaction has to take part of. So as another real quick example, from a language perspective, there are over 360 languages in the country of India with different dialects, different tones, different word structures. Same thing from a Chinese perspective. Over 130 different languages and different dialects that are within the Chinese language alone. So again, think about that contextually, kind of going back that 5 to 8%. Every single language, every single custom, every single way of communication is not in these systems that these robots and these programs are designed to regurgitate information from. So let that settle in for a second. We think about where we're getting information from, where we're getting data from, what's being fed into these processes and systems is essentially incomplete. And the only way that we can really rectify that and consolidate that is from human ability, is human interaction. So we think about the human interaction, that's where we get to come in as analysts, where we get to come in as humans, having that human touch, ensuring essentially that cultural dynamics are brought in, language barriers are brought in, cultural barriers are brought in. All these things help us to understand that we can't just solely rely upon AI. We have to rely upon human interaction and human interaction. A human intervention must happen. So with that in mind, at a high level, I've kind of put together kind of top 3 things that AI still can't do, but essentially is what business analysts are bringing that makes you all irreplaceable. So I've got a little thing kind of built in this. So hopefully this lands well, but essentially understanding context and human nuances, right? Human beings, once we interact with one another, there's a lot of nonverbal cues that we have. There's a contextual language that we all share. I know in particular here in the United States, we have kind of a tale of two cities with what's happening in the current administration. So I'm not here to make many political comments or political suggestions here, but there is, based on background and political experience, there are some nuances as to how they show up and how we do business and interact with one another that a computer system or artificial intelligence just can't quite grasp. The other part I would say is framing the right problems. So where information technology struggles a lot is again, it's only programmed to do what it's programmed to do. So again, going back to the that clip that we showed you, the interaction that the robot had with the other robot was about food. So if a program is only designed to answer one question, it doesn't have any imagination, it doesn't have feelings, it can't branch outside to have a thought, to ask a question, a more interesting question about any given topic. And I have some case studies to kind of back those comments up here in a second. The other part of it too is artificial intelligence can't empathize or create stakeholder trust. So if you're engaging as a business analyst with any business constituent or a leader, you all are able to bring in real world examples. So you can bring in from an empathetic perspective, I have a son that went through this situation, or I happen to have worked in this area and I've seen this transferable skill work there. So we're able to empathize and sympathize with one another. Machines aren't designed to do that. So again, we're able to bring a human intervention into these spaces when it comes to double checking work, when it comes to asking great questions, then also understanding the nuances of humans. So admittedly, I wanted to test something out. So I actually created this slide by using ChatGPT. So I'm sure some of you all were going through and reading some of the information I put up. You probably saw some typos like, this Silas guy can't even spell. He's illiterate. What's going on with him? So I bring all that to bring up the point is there always is going to be a context of human interaction that we're going to have when we have these tools. So this is a pull from ChatGPT. I sliced and diced it. I grabbed some information, highlighted that the human interaction component is always going to be prevalent as we move forward. So we can't completely trust these things. Again, they're not means to an end. Essentially, they are a tool to help us enable our business. So this is a short film that I had some fun with, right? So this is going into now transitioning into where human interaction is really important and how I feel that business analysts are essentially going to save the world. So I'm going to do something I usually don't like to do, but I'm going to completely ruin this short film for you. It's about 9 minutes in length, but I'm going to walk you through everything that happened in this particular short film. So as you see, at a high level, this film came out in 2024, so it's relatively new. It's called Roborto, right? It's a play on words in that situation, but I do want to play just the first 1 minute of this clip for you all, and then I'm going to stop the video and completely ruin what the movie's all about. But I think it should give us some inspiration.
Today you and tomorrow you aren't the same
I haven't
person.
paid for ads to
If
be
you're
gone,
tired
so
of
it'll
what
skip here in a
Today You is
second.
doing, get an accounting fundamentals certificate from WGU School of Business and get a whole new Tomorrow You in just 6 months. Enroll today at WGU.
Handle every part of your build from
3
one
seconds.
platform with Wix Studio. Map out.
This film was brought to life with the invaluable support of the Nobodies Collective.
Good evening. Tonight's top story, a significant leap in robotics. Robots now occupy 20% of jobs across various industries, initially filling labor-intensive roles and now advancing into leadership position. This marks a significant shift in the landscape of employment and technological
Turning to more
integration.
groundbreaking developments, the ascendancy of robots now transcends the corporate sphere, making a profound impact on the world of art. In a historic milestone, a song performed by a robot has climbed to the #1 spot on the music charts. This marks the first occasion a robotic singer has achieved such success, clearly indicating that the realm of the arts will also see significant contributions.
Moving on to a historic moment. In an unprecedented turn of events, a robot has won the elections, making history as the world's first robot president. The Robot Party is celebrating this groundbreaking achievement with great pride. Congratulations to Mr. President on this monumental victory.
Today you and tomorrow you.
All righty. So again, another kind of grim look at what potentially could be. But the cool thing about this particular video, it does a full life cycle of technology and artificial intelligence. So as you saw, it started at the very, very top of just how technology is interacting with human life every single day. Then it goes to the extreme case, obviously, of a robot becoming president of the United States. So our friend Robert goes into the office. So the movie picks up here. Robert goes to the office. He sits down with his new boss. His new boss turns out to be a robot. And so the robot tells Robert, tells Robert, hey, your job is being replaced by me. And it gets worse. Number 2, I'm now your new boss. Second thing, I'm actually firing you, right? But the good news for you, Robert, is you can now pursue your life career of being a singer, because in your file, we know that's one of your favorite pastimes. So that you can dedicate your entire life to singing. So then Robert takes the news, goes home, and he gets home early, and he goes to talk to his girlfriend about the situation. But guess who's at his house? A robot. And the robot is in bed with his girlfriend. Doesn't get weird, doesn't get creepy. They're just watching TV. But essentially now he's being replaced by a robot in that space. So then he goes to it jump scenes to a bar where he's meeting up with his buddies that used to be his bandmates. He says, guys, I got replaced by a robot. The robot suggested that I essentially get back to what I used to do of singing. I called you guys together because I want to get the old band back together. What do you think? The guys look at him and say, well, Robert, that sounds great. You have a beautiful voice, but we've actually have found a lead singer. And guess what it is? It's actually a robot. So now he's been replaced again by another robot. So Robert goes into his feelings and thinks about, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm being replaced again, so on and so forth. And so then Robert does a lot of, still practices his singing. He has a bright idea. What if I dress up like a robot and impersonate a robot, go back and start to sing? So then he goes and starts to sing. He shows up at the nightclub again, and then everyone's like, wow, that robot really,
the same person.
Really has a beautiful voice.
If you're tired of what Today You is doing.
Wow, the robot really has a beautiful voice. I can't believe it's real. And then now Robert is now a robot called Roberto, right? It's kind of like a play on words for abort mission. So then now Robert is now back on top. All the robots love him. All the humans love him. Now he's back on top. So essentially he goes, pretends he's a robot. Now he's getting the respect of robots. As we think about how we have so much admiration for this technology, where it's going, it kind of puts the context on his ear. Robert goes in, dressed up like a robot. Now he's at the top of the charts. Now he's a world-renowned singer. So I built all that up to say, again, thinking about where technology can take us and how we're always going to need human intervention, this was an interesting way of thinking about how we are irreplaceable. And then as the robots start to listening to us with our God-given abilities, wow, that guy really could sing. Wow, that person really knows data. Wow, that person really knows how to crunch numbers. Wow, that person could tell a story. So it was kind of fun for me to watch that video. So all this is going to be shared. I will share with you all as well too. Again, it's a quick little 9-minute video, but I kind of want to show you the full circle of that. The next part here of our conversation, folks, is I have a handful of case studies I want to bring to your attention. Now, these case studies are going to be really brought from my area of expertise. So again, being in the energy industry for the last 10 to 12 years, working around athletics. So a lot of it's going to be brought from that perspective. So the first case study I want to bring to our attention essentially is from a sports world perspective. Not sure if you all have had a chance to see the movie Moneyball, but I'll set up the story for you all really, really quick. So it's based on a true story. I think it was actually nominated for 6 Academy Awards. But the context essentially was, so Brad Pitt plays a former baseball player and GM named Billy Beane, had his time in the pros, put together some really, really strong baseball teams. Played for the Oakland A's, live in the greater Oakland area, San Francisco area. Put together a team, I think in the 2018, I think they played in the ALS championship game, but lost to the Yankees. So he's got to go back to the drawing board and think about, they have a very, very small budget going up against a very large budget against the Yankees. So he's trying to reinvent himself and think about how do we use business analytics to develop a new baseball team. So he reaches out to a young man named, I forget the guy's name. His name is Pete. Pete is played by Jonah Hill. Pete is fresh out of college, went to Yale, studied economics as a business analyst, creates this new strategy of figuring out how to find the most undervalued players across the board. So I'm showing you guys a really, really quick clip on that space. I think it's really valuable for us to understand the value of storytelling when it comes to
life's better when you're under our roof. Save up to 23% by bundling your home and auto with us.
Yo, these Katie's are fire. Bro, you work here?
Whatever, kid.
All right,
This is Dan. Coffee on?
So using this equation in the upper left right here, I'm projecting that we need to win at least 99 games in order to make it to the postseason. We need to score at least 814 runs in order to win those games and allow no more than 645 runs.
What's this?
This is the code that I've written for our year-to-year projections. This is building in all the intelligence that we have to project players.
Okay.
It's about getting things down to one number. Using the stats the way we read them, we'll find value in players that nobody else can see. People are overlooked for a variety of biased reasons and perceived flaws. Age, appearance, personality. Bill James and mathematics cut straight through that. Billy, of the 20,000 notable players for us to consider, I believe that there's a championship team of 25 people that we can afford because everyone else in baseball undervalues them. Like an island of misfit toys. Billy, this is Chad Bradford. He's a relief pitcher. He's one of the most undervalued players in baseball. His defect is that he throws funny. Nobody in the big leagues cares about him because he looks funny. This guy could be not just the best pitcher in our bullpen, but one of the most effective relief pitchers in all of baseball. This guy should cost $3 million a year. We can get him for $237,000.
All right, I'll stop it right there. So yes, you all get the idea of essentially how data business analysts were able to look at the information that they were able to extract by looking at the story from a different angle. A machine can't do what Pete has done there. So again, thinking about the intangible business value, the intangible business case that you all bring, essentially. Oh, There we go. Essentially at high level. So the intangible benefits. So I'm gonna walk through these case studies. I'm looking at my time. I get a little long-winded. I will get through all my slides, but thinking about the intangible benefits of having a person like a Pete on your team or having a you on your team is that the intangible benefits essentially is challenging traditional thinking. There's a pivotal scene in this movie where Brad Pitt is sitting in front of, I think, maybe 7 or 8 talent scouts. They've been doing this for years, and they've been doing work the same way since the beginning of time for baseball, well over 100 years. So bringing in this new perspective from an analytical perspective essentially allowed them to challenge traditional thinking when it comes to getting new players. Also, too, I don't want to ruin the movie, but I'll continue with the intangible benefits, increasing credibility through data in sports, and also enhance a strategic decision making. A little bit of spoiler in this movie too, so I'll tell you one part of it. This strategy has been adopted by lots of MLB players. I believe in 2021, 2022, the Boston Red Sox adopted this type of program. They hadn't won a World Series, I believe, since 1918. And as we know, the Red Sox now is being more of a dominant force again. They've adopted a lot of these models to increase productivity for their franchise. Another quick analysis too. So I'm in the space of talent management. So FC Barcelona has an academy called La Masia Academy. So this academy essentially focuses on player development, right? Development of evaluating from a technical perspective, a tactical perspective, and psychological perspective. So some of the most recognizable soccer players in the world have gone through this process. Obviously, there's Lionel Messi, there's Iniesta there, Pujols went there, Sergio Busquets. So big name soccer players have all gone through this program. So some of the intangible benefits that this program is put together is essentially building strong club identity. Everyone knows Barca, right? If you're familiar with the game of soccer, the beautiful game. It's improved retention and loyalty among their fan base. And it also has served as a really cool opportunity for leadership development within their programs as well, too. So those are things that are immeasurable, right? That are intangible, that are also measurable. Again, talking about sports, I'm an NBA guy, so let's play off basketball right now as well, too, thinking about organizational development. That group of folks you see at the very, very top hoisting the trophy, those are the Toronto Raptors. The Toronto Raptors beat the Golden State Warriors back in 2019. Not sure if I have any Warrior friends on the call, but I'm from Oklahoma City. I'm a Thunder guy, but I digress. But the Golden State Warriors is arguably probably one of the greatest basketball teams ever assembled in modern basketball. But this little no-name team out of Toronto won the series 4-2 based on new business analytics contributions. So they look at cultural assessments through analyzing players for best fit beyond physical performance. So thinking about psychological safety, leadership potential, etc. And what they were ultimately able to put together was essentially a NBA championship team. So some of the intangible benefits that business analysts were able to bring into that team was building stronger team cohesion, obviously increasing resiliency, and also leadership development. So from an energy perspective, again, I'm going to bring in a couple other case studies. I'm going to show you all some kind of looks under the hoods with some of the organizations and clients that I've worked with in the past. So from an energy perspective, grid modernization is a huge deal for any local utility. So as we think about grid modernization, the grids that we have built all throughout the United States, essentially there are 3 grids. There's one out in the east, one out in the west, and then one in Texas and ERCOT. So grid modernization is a really huge thing to ensure that grid resiliency is ready for the future of renewable energy. So we talk about renewable, we're talking about batteries, solar, wind. How do we capture that information? So essentially being able to understand it and bridge the gap where business analysts are able to bring in an intangible measurement essentially is around strategic foresight, stakeholder alignment across all stakeholders, and also obviously customer empathy as well too. As we think about how do we modernize the grids because we're having to dig up earth in people's backyards, how do we make sure people understand what we're doing there? From a energy transition perspective, was kind of foreshadowing that a little bit with being able to modernize how we're generating energy. So as a part of ESG goals, so ESG is environmental societal governance. Every utility that you come across are trying to shift their portfolio to be more environmentally friendly. So where business analysts come into is a change management opportunity. Is the organization change ready? Is cultural transformation going to be sustainable across the board? So how do we align with our strategies across the board from that aspect as well too? A couple more case studies from an energy perspective is call centers. Working where I used to work at Evergy, call centers are really important. So if there's an outage or you have a question about your bill, call centers are huge in the energy industry, and they're also a unionized position. So where automation comes in, where BA is over to be able to overlay, essentially is the outcomes is improve chatbot flow for tier 1 calls. And where AI can't really help is emotional load, right? Are these calls causing stress and strain on the folks working in call center? So how do they show up from the immeasurable intangible is customer empathy, right? Communication quality, trust, and building trust. And the last one I'll bring to you all's attention essentially is space that I've had a lot of experience is with workforce planning. So we have aging infrastructure when it comes to utility. So essentially what we're thinking about is from an intangible measurement perspective is we have a knowledge gap that's leaving. The youngest baby boomer turned 50 at the end of 2024. So we have lots of talent that's leaving every industry. So institutional knowledge, how do business analysts ask the right questions? How do BAs essentially ensure succession plans are ready? And essentially, how is this going to affect the community as well, too? So at a high level, wanted to provide you all with some high level examples of case studies from an athletic perspective and also from an energy industry perspective. So now I'm gonna take a deep dive into some of the things that I've been able to do with some clients of mine, as well as with some projects I've been able to work on in the past. Now I'll leave maybe 5 minutes for Q&A, and I'll get to these slides relatively quickly. So working as a D&I professional and as a cultural advocate, culture is really huge. So working with a client of mine, we've talked a lot about a culture score and engagement score. How are we interacting? How are people showing up at work at a high level? So I was able to partner with a large shop. I'm sure you all are familiar with Gartner. They do a lot of analytics. So I was able to build out some strategies of how do we do a cultural assessment to make sure that the culture is healthy and culture rich, and also that the workforce is also engaged. So looking at that at a macro level, being able to break out data, understanding females from a U.S. perspective. OUS stands for outside the U.S. So obviously working with a global entity, understanding how culture scores are showing up, and also too how engagement scores are showing up. So what the data was able to show us is the highest culture within the organization was actually with those that are outside the United States. So then how are we engaging is from a business analyst perspective with our professionals outside the United States, what's increasing them score, what's increasing their scores to make them feel so good about this organization. We also learned that the Hispanic scores were also higher than any other population across the organization as well. So that allows humans to dig in and have deeper questions of why that is and to be curious. Again, artificial intelligence isn't there to ask those deep, intriguing questions. Also, as we think about from a cultural survey perspective, is we're able to look at each demographic and kind of do a basically kind of like a net promoter score and understand where are the highlights and lowlights when it comes to different demographics. So some key takeaways is no culture was below the company average. The client that I was working with as well also had high engagement scores from two of their most populated populations within the organization. And also too, the client has the right culture to be found successful across the board. And also we had the same thing from an engagement perspective. I'm moving a little bit more quickly. Another element I've been working with the client on essentially is development of the workforce. So ensuring that you're developing your professionals in the right way. So we did a deep dive into gender, ethnicity, sector, geographic, years of experience, and then selection. So within this organization, there are 3 programs we took a deeper dive into. So there's a leadership development program. There was an EDGE program for young professionals and also a global sponsorship program. We're able to look at the total number of professionals that were involved in these programs, figure out where they are, and then also ultimately, are they being successful? Are they being promoted? Are they getting paid more across the board? So being able to use data analytics to help us with leadership in developing those professionals. So those are internal programs. Was also able to gauge some external programs within the organization as well too, to get a sense of these programs essentially are organizations that you can be partnered up with. So if we don't have a development tool within the organization, how do we partner our good professionals up with organizations outside the company for development, for educating, and also for recruiting opportunities as well too. So I just wanted to bring in a handful of examples, essentially, of how business analysts, how a business analytical brain can really help increase productivity, help answer some really, really tough questions. There are several tools out there like Power BI, Tableau. So I'll pop to those really, really quick. Here's a quick sample of being able to show how businesses can look at data to provide training across the board of understanding who's getting training, who's not, from a geographic perspective, from an ethnicity perspective, from a sector perspective. Then also most organizations have employee resource groups. So being able to know how many professionals are in the organization, where they are, and how do we increase those groups, because being able to have a sample size of an employee resource groups actually help increase retention, performance, and enriches culture. And then also too, being able to understand, if you are a global organization, how those impact your organization. Quick snapshot of how those employee resource groups really show up as well too. And then the last thing I have on here is a real quick 5-step guide of essentially how to AI proof your career as a business analyst. So essentially, upskill your human interaction skills, become a strategic thinker, strengthen your data fluency. Don't let this train pass you by. Continue to engage with leadership, and ultimately keep learning and staying curious. So I've only left, T, I know you like to start on time and end on time, so I'm trying to do that for you as well too, but maybe one question and we'll wrap up.
Okay. The question we want to ask you is, how do you measure empathy?
Measure empathy, goodness gracious. Empathy, I would say, is I've worked with some leaders, and they've always said, I have an open door policy. People should come to me and have a conversation with me at any point in time. I'm an open book, so on and so forth. So the pushback I always have with those leaders is, well, how many people have actually walked through your door, right? So when we think about from an empathetic leader perspective, if the goal is to be empathetic, is how many people are actually interacting with you? How many people are actually feel they have psychological safety? How many people feel as though that this organization is true to what they're doing? So kind of going back to that engagement survey, there's an opportunity of implementing a question of, do I feel that my leadership team is empathetic? Is my organization cultural to where I have psychological safety where I can fail? So there's ways of implementing that and doing pulse surveys. There's ways of implementing that so we use Gallup, a Q12 question scenario. So you can build those questions into a cultural assessment. Then you can engage with leadership and saying, hey, this team feels as though empathy is real versus this team is not. Let's take a deeper dive into what this team is doing that has a high engagement scores from an empathetic perspective, and this team that's not so high. How do we pair those folks together? Because we do want to be able to measure empathy, and we want to be an empathetic organization.
Very good. So what I'm hearing is you take something that is intangible, you identify the markers that indicate that it's real, you measure those, turn them into quantifiable things, and then you track it.
Exactamundo. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, that's what we wanted to know. Thank you so much, Silas. I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, give him a round of applause. Next week, we have Alicia Funderburk going to talk about making teams around the world work together better. She bring in a panel of people that have the experience of doing that and doing it well. We want to know what it's like, because if you have not worked with teams that are, say, in India or somewhere else, you need to get some hints. There are some things that we've learned in doing this that you need to know before you make the same mistakes that I made. So we'll see you next week on that, and I'll see y'all next week. Talk to you later.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye.